those will open up more opportunities, and those will also be major catalyst in having the export growth beyond 418 the like last financial year to grow up to 500 billion US dollar in this financial year. And definitely we should be well on path at achieving 1 trillion a billion 1 trillion US dollar service exports by 2030. Of course it will be beyond that only we'll be able to achieve.
Hello and welcome to Macro Decode. Services exports in India is growing fast and is set to overtake merchandise exports soon. To align with the export markets, the government will have to work on a comprehensive policy framework and data sovereignty. The US trade deal also has raised questions about India's data sovereignty. To understand more about the services trade, its opportunities and challenges, we have with us Abhay Sinha, Director General, Services Export Promotion Council. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Sangeeta. Pleasure to be here.
In the trade basket, services have been performing well in the past few years. Last November, if you see the monthly services exports overtook merchandise exports. What are the factors supporting this growth, and when will we see services exports becoming bigger than goods exports on a yearly basis?
It's a very important point you have mentioned about the growth of services exports. In fact, for quite some time in the past, services sector has been growing in terms of export despite headwinds like COVID. Of course, there was a disruption during the COVID time, and that affected major services exports like tourism, for example. Inbound to India was affected. Likewise, patients coming to India. Those were the areas where there was a huge dent in the services exports from India. But as we moved ahead with new opportunities coming up, other service exports have been growing. We note that IT continues to lead the growth in service exports, and in the recently announced exports of services are reaching up to 418 billion US dollar in the concluded financial year. That shows like about 40 to 42% services exports were from IT sector, and of course close to 25%, 22 to 25 from the business services. So majorly when we look at the overall services sector and exports, two areas, like two subsectors contribute around 65% in the services export growth story. But that doesn't discount the contribution of key sectors like tourism. There are many engineering services. The sector very silently is contributing a lot. Engineering and also combined with research and development. Those sectors are very important. Of course, we do expect a lot of growth potential in engineering. It can reach up to 100 billion. The gap between merchandise export and services is around 23 billion US dollar. We believe that in the next few months or by end of this financial year, we will be overtaking the merchandise exports.
Unlike goods trade, in services trade, we have been maintaining a surplus. And this surplus has actually been cushioning the overall trade deficit as well. Which are the services that have been contributing to this trade surplus?
More import, less export. That's where we have a trade deficit not in favor of India. Because of the surplus in service export, we are offsetting. There was an offset of about 155 billion sometime back. Service exports have been growing at a double-digit rate.
When we look at services exports, IT and ITS services, they were the mainstay in our services exports. But now, new business services, as you mentioned, professional services also are coming. Can you just give us a sense as to know what are the kind of services that are included in this business services, which are growing faster?
When we talk about business services, like it basically comprises of bookkeeping and accounting services, legal services, legal process outsourcing, architectural services. So it's a mix of various services, market research. So likewise, then the construction consulting. Consulting as a major part, like when we say consulting, it can overlap with a number of other sectors, but they constitute like this group of services are covered under the definition of professional services, business services. There is another classification called other business services.
That's right.
Professional services are the services given by an skilled professional. That can be like CA offering the services. The number of players who are going to provide such professional services are huge.
Right. Can you also tell me about the markets? I think we already have a few markets where we are strong, but we are also looking at more new markets and exploring them.
We are very much concentrated in US, in EU, and a few other markets. Inbound, mobility of the students coming from Africa to study. So that is also an export. And this in the data, sometimes it also gets embedded into tourism data. A lot of patients come from CIS countries, from Africa, African nationals, and SARC areas.
Right.
But we do not find high paying tourists coming from faraway places. We don't find too much of business growing with Latin American countries. We do talk about global south,
Right.
but the concentration of the service export cannot be noticed there. The or the contribution from these markets are not there. So one of the major challenge in case of service export is to diversify the market. But because of the number of modes of way in which services exports can be done, it is also difficult because there are certain challenges. The exports happen in four ways. Mode one is digital transfer of anything. The second one is mode two, where tourism and other things, where consumer has to come to the country to consume the services. So all the patients coming to India, tourists coming to India, they constitute mode two. Mode three is a permanent entity in a third country. If you look at the overall services market globally, the major contribution comes from mode three and mode four. We often talk about mode four, where it is a temporary mobility of the workforce. We have huge scope because of the kind of population we have. So a lot of talent can be exported. But then you do face regulatory challenges. In mode one, also there are regulatory challenges, but mode four definitely have a lot more regulatory challenges. IT professionals going from India to any country, they did face such challenges. Those challenges will keep on coming, and the series of FTAs like EU FTA, then you had India UK, then India UAE, New Zealand FTA will be signed on 27th of this month. So they are also going to open up a lot of opportunities for the services market to diversify.
So as you just mentioned about FTAs, we have been negotiating with a lot of countries on trade deals. But what are the things that we are still missing on that? What are your requirements in terms of all the four modes? What should the government do to facilitate the kind of services exports to make it bigger?
Two things are very important. It's a give and take. In services export or in services trade, the major issue is the data. Unlike manufacturing, there is no system of bilateral trade data mapping. So there are issues which are general, like visa issue. There is a compliance issue. For example, if a CA wants to offer the services in UK, they have to qualify a given exam. That exam could be costly. Architects from India are facing this issue. Engineers from India offering their services are having that issue. Nursing, which is a very important segment from India's perspective, having an immense scope in countries where you have aging population like Japan, Germany. But what we lack is the qualification barrier. So those things could be negotiated. To then there would be certain regulatory barrier. Limited visa was another issue. But now the services exports and the services trade between countries have become like wherever India is negotiating, it is an integral part. So services are at par right now in terms of the negotiation.
Right. So when we talk about trade deals, the trade deal with US is getting ready. And one of the main worries about the trade deal is that, we would probably have issues with regard to data sovereignty. In the trade deal with Bangladesh, if you see, the US had included provisions for the free transfer of data, including those data pertaining to national security sensitive technologies, and an assurance that the country will not impose digital services taxes on American multinational companies. If such provisions are there in our deal also, how far this is a threat to our services industry?
Well, you see, like we have been hearing a lot about the trade deal with US, and we did find out that a lot of opportunities will be there because US is one of our larger market. So anything coming on the data can impact. As of now, we are still looking forward to, and we don't have the access of many documents, the negotiation, what is going on right now. So can't say right now. I'm not very much informed to give my views on the impact. But definitely, we are looking in a very optimistic way that it will open more opportunities for the Indian professionals. Okay, your interactions with the government, do you find that the government is also serious about the data sovereignty part? Yeah, yeah. Right. Okay. So recently, UN's Trade and Development Body, UNCTAD, had come out with a report, where it was saying that services trade is actually going to grow much bigger. And developing countries are also looking at this opportunity. But in developing countries, they do not have the regulatory framework to support such kind of services trade. How far is this true in the case of India? That is one thing. And then also about, the cross-border data flows, data protection and electronics transaction. Do we have a real regulatory framework to support all these kind of things? Well, we also feel that there could be the need for some kind of regulation. But here, regulation, I mean to say that in what way we can lend credibility to the services which are being exported. So we treat regulation as a facilitating parameter, not as a kind of parameter to impede the growth of the export. Let's take the example of medical value tourism. Right. They don't have to fulfill any prerequisite qualification here in India. The business which is coming to India is coming because of the kind of quality treatment we are providing. But at the same time, it is also hampering to realize the potential because of the presence of unregulated intermediaries. So that can be one way to look at the need for regulation. Yeah. What about the newer areas like AI? A lot being talked about electronic transactions. So there, how much are we have a kind of regulatory mechanism? There is no fixed regulatory mechanism right now. We all understand that AI has become a big disruptor in the market. Now, AI is not only disrupting any given sector. Like for example, it disrupted animation. Right. It affected the growth of animation in terms of export. Yeah. It is affecting many other sectors. But on the positive side, if you look at it, the delivery part of the services can be enriched because of AI. So that's how we are looking at it. It will create more services to be delivered. The moment we are talking about the digital economy, the payment gateways, market preferences, because AI can give you a lot of input on the market preference, on the market choices. Everywhere there will be a transaction which will happen digitally. There will always be somebody looking for product or services, but the platform will be digital and that can be powered by AI's more features. Purchase pattern can be analyzed, and that will definitely help the exporters, whether they are from the services side or the goods side. Information flow will be much faster. And the way AI is evolving, do you think we have an opportunity there? Definitely. AI has already started providing you a lot of opportunity in healthcare delivery systems. So health tech companies are going to gain, fintech companies, even tourism, agri services, nobody talked about. Okay. Huge potential. Space services, people are talking about it. Defense services, then software as a service, definitely like there is a lot of buzz. We are also talking about a lot of startups. Most of the startups are from the services side. So how do we strengthen the ecosystem over there? Those will also be major catalyst in having the export growth beyond 400 like last financial year to grow up to 500 billion US dollar in this financial year. And definitely we should be well on path at achieving 1 trillion US dollar service exports by 2030. Of course, it will be beyond that only we'll be able to achieve. Are there some challenges that government can actually help you with? If you analyze for the last 5 years or so, services exports have grown on its own. Right. But my government is having export promotion mission. One difference which has happened is to have the services sector included in export promotion mission scheme as priorities. But at the same time, if you analyze the data for all the sectors, I can give one example of travel and tourism. 33 billion US dollar is right now the export. A comparable sector can be pharma, for example, 25 billion. Now, if you analyze the kind of support travel and tourism is getting, the kind of support a pharma, almost the equivalent kind of export is getting are two different. You have PNI, you have ROTTEP, you have ECG. So when we roughly calculate, uh, services sector is not getting any such benefit where we talk about duty rebate kind of scheme other than the duty split. We are only relying on the promotional activities. We had submitted one uh, proposal to the Ministry of Commerce and also to the Ministry of Finance to come up with something similar to that. We called it RES, BP remission on export on services. So that was Mr. Abhay Sinha of SEPC. He was talking to us that the services exports that is growing much faster. And we would probably see $500 billion exports happening this fiscal. And by 2030, probably $1 trillion exports will be there. And he is also saying how the services industry has been growing on its own. And now that it is growing faster, it needs much more support from the government, similar to something like a road tap schemes. Thank you for joining me for this show, sir. Thank you so much.